in the home destination. Uber sent home to the car. While the Uber app is still going on, we got it charging on the pad now. It also threw in the Bastrop Supercharger along the way. So obviously Uber didn't do that, but the car knows that it wasn't going to make it back to Katy without charging first. So it's using the best way to go about that. I'm about that life. Technology has come a long way. So hopefully we don't run into any silly super traffic and something that would prevent us from getting to the Supercharger. But you never know. Things happen. I just don't want to be on the news as the Tesla Uber guy that ran out of juice. Embarrassing indeed. Alright, what else we got? We did see Tesla stock go back to 446. That's a huge jump of about $15 today. That would have been really nice to take advantage of in a call perspective. I imagine some of the shorts got burned pretty deep today, but you know, we still got our money in the stock, and we're definitely going to keep it there for as long as we can. Seems like traffic is slowing to a crawl. But I imagine the car knows that. We have definitely available at pump 15 miles out for the Buc-ee's. I think a lot of this has to do with the construction that's going on here. I think there's also a light for cross traffic as well. No big deal. I do like some ATX, man. I'm from Angleton, Texas. Like, we call that A-Town. A-Town down. Austin is ATX. We are A-Town. And I don't know. I'm just really in awe that we found ourselves in Austin, Texas. Really am in awe. Oh my God. But we're fine. We're fine. Now that I think about it, she might have been really fun to talk to, discussing what brings her to Austin, but she just definitely felt like she wanted her space. Anyway, we're here to give it. So first freeze was 2020 in the house. We didn't experience any pipe burstage or anything like that. Solar panels and Powerwall came in very good. We had electricity, but we didn't have heat. Second time around, we had another freeze of sorts. The lights didn't go out for a long time. They did flicker in and out. The main thing is we were able to use FSD in the snow. That was pretty dope. And that was a few years back. Now we have a potential freeze where it very well could snow. Ice is going to, I mean, there's just tons of precipitation. So they're expecting all the way from Oklahoma on down for there to be like cakes of snow and ice. We may get some of that as well, but ultimately the way the Texas grid system is if we're gonna feel that ripple, and if Austin has a glut, right? And you know, these power lines, you know, they're gonna do their best to try to protect them, the roads, the power lines, everything that could potentially cause people to lose their lives, right? That's the problem. If you lose power, that means you're also losing the natural, like, you know, you typically have the heater on when the temperatures drop to below, to about that freezing level. But if you don't have a heat source, some people like to turn on the ovens, right? And they got to be real careful because, ventilation and things of that nature. A lot of people died from suffocation because they basically they choked themselves out with carbon dioxide, essentially. So if we can't keep the lights on, we won't be able to keep the heat on. That's when people start, shivering and freezing to death, and lo and behold, that's when pipes start bursting because you can't retain the heat in the home. So attic pipes and pipes under the sink don't get the necessary heat to keep them from going down. So you know what I'm talking about. That's one way that havoc would be caused, is if power goes out, people aren't going to have the necessary means to keep the heat on, which was us, the first freeze. I'm just gonna blabber into the camera. I'm not going to be talking about anything super relevant. You're just gonna get some insight from me as we start preparing for this freeze. And who knows, I could turn the music on if I get, but talking will keep me from going to sleep. Holy smokes, this is some craziness. I can't believe how crazy this is. But yeah, we had lights, and with those lights there's some heat, right? But nothing like having the AC unit available even though the power's down. So we'll be able to, if the power goes down, we got 3 power walls now, can handle the load. If we had a Cybertruck, we could hook the house up and do some power share. That's the main goal, is to be self-reliant, not have to truly be dependent, right? We still use the grid, but we're not as dependent on it as, say, everybody else in the neighborhood, which can be a good thing, right? I think the more of us that become a little more independent of the grid, that's, the neighbors, if they got solar panels, if they got power walls, they could also engage in that virtual power plant, causing there to be more stability in our region when it comes to power outages. So there's some benefits to that, right? Even if they had Generacs or things of that nature, just less strain on the grid itself. And if they have a means to give that energy back, i.e. power walls, not only is it less strain, it's actually like supporting the grid. Especially, I mean, we're supplying, when the sun's out, we're supplying power not only to ourselves, but even to the area around us. Our neighbors' homes can benefit from the energy that is being provided. It's insane. Like, I mean, if most houses, when they're just at rest, might be consuming 2.5 kilowatts, depending size, and that's just like, without the washer and dryer running, without the AC on, house is just maintaining electrical outlets and TVs and things of that nature. You're running about 2.5 at any given moment, and most of the time it's even less, like 0.8, 0.5. Just depends on your activity. On a bright day, my solar system can generate up to 12 kilowatts. And there's so much excess, unless we've got a vehicle charging, we've got the AC unit turned on, or if we're running the washer and dryer. If we're not doing any of those things, there's just so much excess energy that it would power the entire block. And I just feel if more people had this, we would have less outages, we would have more stability. I don't know. But this is me thinking. Maybe it's too early. Maybe because it's not a readily apparent situation that is beneficial, right? You have to kind of search for the benefits. Like, I don't know, when there's where there's a storm approaching of winter proportions, yeah, it starts to look a little bit different, right? And then Yosh was like, I'm so glad they came out and replaced the Powerwall 2s. But the Powerwall 2s were so effective, you know. But yeah, they came in basically the week before the storm. They didn't know there was a storm. I made this appointment back in 2025. But lo and behold, is like, you know, Powerwall fate, that we've got fresh Powerwall 3s getting ready for this potential storm. And I'm all about that life. All right, so this morning we saw Elon Musk at Davos. He's talking the same stuff, actually being a little more, it's every time he speaks, it's a little different. Those subtle nuances kind of give you some insight on and clarity on how soon this stuff might happen, right? You got to give Elon a little, no one can predict the trajectory of AI and humanoid robots, and you know, he's also talking about SpaceX and, you know, freaking autonomous. It is so difficult to project that. You know, supply chains and interruptions and disruptions and all this other stuff, right? We got new technologies coming and going. It's just interesting to hear him speak and what his thought process is. Most people, I wouldn't say most people, but there are the pessimists that will dismiss everything he says to their detriment. And that's sad to me, right? Not everything he says is going to come to pass, but it's something we should all be thinking about, right? He knows more about it than he's closer to it than I am. So I'm going to, you know, he's been right about a lot too. He may have been wrong about some things, but he's been right about some things too. And truth be told, his timelines may vary in one direction or the other, right? He might be late. Wouldn't that be interesting if he's late? Right? He likes to give a 50%, like, you know, a median of when these things could happen. He could be early, he could be late. And wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be something interesting to behold? I don't know. It's always just interesting to hear him talk, his perspective on a variety of different subjects, considering he's probably the most successful businessman that I've ever seen personally. But you start going back into history, I mean, top five all day, every day when you're talking about American industrialism. So, if not one, I may be a fanboy, but I'm not delusional, right? Like I said, I don't agree with everything Elon Musk says, especially when it comes to politics. But it'd be hard to ignore him when he starts talking about things that are going to reshape the economy, things that are going to just blow the doors off of what we thought was the equation for, you know, just the economics of what we expect the world to. This is something you gotta kind of pay attention to, right? And that's the only reason why I've invested so much in Tesla, is because, one, I'm using their products. The products that, you know, have changed my life over the past 6 years, basically. Buying my first car, getting the solar systems, getting the power walls, understanding how this stuff is going to impact not just me, but my neighbors and my family. And I've nothing but good things about my experience with the product. So one, great company, manufacturing, innovation, you know, vertical integration, all that jazz, right? From what I gather, I'm like, this is a good company. Tesla's a great company. I want to work for them so bad because the products have fulfilled me in a way that I can't truly explain. Investing in TSLA after about a month of ownership of my 2020 Model 3. Wife trading in her Honda, Japanese, right? Japanese lady, loves Japanese cars until she experiences the Model Y. No more of that Japanese stuff. We're a Tesla household. She upgrades from the Model Y to the Model X, wants to see what that luxury life's about, and is worth every penny. Now, I sold my Model 3, my first one. I bought it at $42,000, ended up selling it at around $52,000. COVID was a weird time, and I took advantage of that, dumped a lot of that into the stock, got my first set of 100 shares, where I started to then commence my strategy of using covered calls as a sort of insurance. And watching Tesla plummet turned out to be very fruitful. I'm buying Tesla shares all the way down from 450 basically, but I'm using the money that I'm using for covered calls to then buy shares of Tesla. Tesla drops to epic proportions. I'm able to buy shares of Tesla at 135, about 200, because I placed long calls. They were significantly cheaper at the time, right? So around $6,000 got me a couple of lots of 100 shares of Tesla. It went from 135 and soared, right? I ended up just purchasing shares of Tesla at 135, when in actuality, if I'd have bought them at the time, would have easily been in the 300s or so. Tesla then, went up a little bit to around 470 or something like that, and your boy contemplated becoming debt free. During that time frame, I've got a monthly allotment that I use to just for Tesla. I love watching my share count grow in my brokerage account. Yeah, there's worse things you could be doing with your money, I promise you. But for me, I like seeing TSLA grow. I like seeing my brokerage account expand, and I like the more Tesla shares I get, the more covered calls I'm able to place, and the more insurance money I'm able to acquire. So, and then I turn that around and buy more shares so that I can use it to buy more covered calls. It's a incredible flywheel that this works for me. And I've talked to other people. This may be risky for some, like being able, because I'm kind of trying to judge it to where I never sell a single share. If Tesla were to soar $15 on a day, if I were placing covered calls, I was very tempted to start placing covered calls again, but I needed another red day. And then what you want to do is, on a day like today where it's high, you might gamble and place 3-6 weeks covered call close, right? I'm not a gambler like that. Like some people might be, and this is where the risk is different for everyone. What I'm doing, my strategy, what I'm doing, people would call it risky, but even within the strategy, there are even riskier ways to go about it, which has, I've never lost 100 shares placing the covered calls in this way. So, but there is a chance they could get called away, and then you got to worry about taxes, and then you got to worry about trying to buy more shares even at this elevated price, just to maybe avoid taxes, or maybe repurpose that money and do some other things, right? Then you got options, but none of those options tend to be better than just having the shares. At least my personal opinion. We are about 1 minute out from the Supercharger. I see the Buc-ee's The car, we are at about 20 miles left in this battery. This is the lowest I've ever taken this particular car, without a shadow of a doubt. And we're technically still on the clock for Uber. Uber has not given us any rides at this moment, and we are coming up on one of the better Superchargers. This Buc-ee's, I really haven't spent a lot of time in this Buc-ee's, but I imagine this is one of the better Buc-ee's in the state of Texas. So we're gonna go in there and do what we gotta do. But yeah, my journey from 2020 to now when it comes to TSLA has been quite riveting, to say the least, and I love it. Every month I purchase more shares. Every time I can get an extra 100 shares, I put it in a rotation so that I can get the insurance that revolves around covered calls. And, you know, if we get really bad, like, man, it got really low. It didn't get low enough to where I wanted to place a covered call. Like, that would, like, I'm talking, like, it would have to be, like, in the 275s for me to want to place another long call that goes out 3 years or so. But either way, we just play it by ear, and what happens, happens. And we just keep enough dry powder to make this work. We were buying shares at 435. You know, I think that's the highest we bought in the past couple of weeks. And we have reached our destination.